Okay, I would like for you to listen while I go over the code that we've been using to create our images, and hopefully you'll enjoy this more if you can just listen to it privately and not listen to me talk. So this is the two-dimensional array that we used to create our 8x8 image that we created. And you may have already created your image, you may have completed your image, you may have exported the data for your image, you may have already reformatted it and put it into the code. It would go right here into the code after image slots, and it would look like this. You may have already run your code, and you may have already put it into a game and seen your code actually inserted in your game. You may not have done all those things yet. That's fine. You can go ahead and keep working until you have done that. As I said, we're not in a hurry, but that's what you're working towards. If you have already done that, that's super. Then you're ready for this next step. But I want you to listen to these things and understand them and see what our next steps are going to be looking like in terms of coding. So let's think about the code that I sent to you. This code, we know, takes this data that is a description of locations for slots where your agent is carrying wool of different colors. And it's going to use this information to create an image, an 8x8 image. And we've already decided it'd be 8x8. And I told you to make it 8x8. And here it is, size equals 8. So let's go through and see how this code works, make sure we understand it, and then see if we can change this code so that instead of it digging a trench in the earth and laying the picture down flat, let's see if we can create it so that it makes the code to stand up straight. So before execution, this is a comment. Hashtag, everything after hashtag does not become interpreted. So it's ignored by the interpreter, and we put it there for our own benefit. So I, of course, put this there for your benefit and mine. Before execution, add blocks to the agent's inventory for each slot referenced in your array. Now, if you wanted to have something different in one of those slots, for example, you decided that you wanted TNT or something, this would be the place to say that there is an exception. For example, if you said here in this code, for instance, you might in the cal just use the defaults. Change the default to, blah, blah, blah in slot 12. Okay. And so this would be the case where if you made multiple images and you wanted there to be one situation where you had a special block, you would make these notes here. That's what coding comments are for. So, and then you're going to go ahead and create your array to make a pattern of blocks. And the size is 8. We just make this as a notation. So this is where we actually create the array. Image underscore slots is the name of our array. This is an assignment statement. The equal sign shows us variable equals. That's an assignment statement. And now we see this incredible mass of syntax with parentheses, square brackets, commas, all this stuff going on. But if you stop and pull it apart in your mind piece by piece, you'll realize, okay, it's size 8. So there's 8 of these big gloms of my selection arrow is not being nice to me right now. I'm trying to show everything that's in this parenthesis here. So there are 8 of these parentheses elements. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And those represent the 8 rows that are in your image. And in each one of those rows, there is information for the 8 columns, okay? Or you can think of it the other way, columns and rows. It doesn't matter at all. So you have 8 elements in each of these 8 larger groups, all right? And each of these groups are themselves an element in your array. So this is a two-dimensional array. You can show it here as this big long list, but you can think of it also as a table, right? Like as you made it in Excel, a 2x2 table. So arrays are usually accessed in a for loop. And we've used for loops before. And we are going to see this command in just a second. The for loop is down here. And so we have two for loops. One for loop goes through the rows and another for loop goes through the column. The first loop thinks of this entire element and says, oh, I just want to look at this first element. And then the second loop says, okay, I want to look at each one of these elements. This one, and then this one, and then this one. And then the next you come back to the first for loop and it says, oh, I want to look at the second element. And as it's saying, okay, that's the second element. And then it goes back into the middle for loop, and the middle for loop says, I want to do this one, and then this one, and then this one. So the outer for loop is looking at the big chunks, and the inner for loop is going through the dirty work of going every single tiny piece. So we have a larger for loop, and inside a for loop, everything is indented. And let's see, for row in image slots starts here. The outer loop goes through each row. These commands happen once for each row, and then for column in row. So for every column in each row, the inner loop goes through each element. These indented commands happen once for each element in the array. That's what I just said. I'm sure you're thrilled to hear it again. Okay, now say column. In other words, tell me the number of this column right here. In other words, am I on the first, or actually start with 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9? Which element in the agent's inventory am I looking at right now? So if this is working correctly, all you're going to have showing up in your chat, when it shows it in your world, it's going to go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. But it shows you that it's actually inside of this loop and chunking along just fine. And then it's going to say that, and then it's going to agent destroy down. This is where it's digging in the grass. Now it's placing column down. So what does this command mean? This command means that the agent is going to place something down in front of it. Where is it going to get the object that it's placing down? It's going to go into its inventory. Where will it go? It will go into its inventory in a slot. And column is a variable that has a value from 0 to 9. So it will choose that slot, 0 to 9. All right? So at the end of every row, we've gone all 9, right? So this row goes chunk through all the rows. And then at the end of the row, the agent has to move back to the beginning of the row because he's done the whole row and he's standing there at the end of the row, bored as all get out, wondering what to do next. So if he tries to do the same row in the exact same place, he's just going to keep digging up the same row over and over. So he has to step backwards, then he has to move all the way back to the left, and then he has to start again to begin putting in a new row. So the agent is going to move back, and then he's going to move to his left to go back to the beginning because he was moving right. So he moves left to go back to the beginning, to go all the way back to the beginning, and then he will go back up to this loop here to do the next row. And he will do that 8 times, and that will have created all the initial way that we have been doing our image. So he'll have 8 rows, 8 columns, and this is what we have already executed. Now what we want to do is change how this is executing so that instead of having the agent create an image that is being placed down in front of him, we want to create it so he is placing the image in front of him up and down vertically. So we need to think about how we can change this. So instead of it being down in front of him, what must we change? And I want you to think about this because we are going to try and change this together in class on Wednesday. I would like to make a recommendation. Are we going to put in this piece of information first? What will your strategy be? If you're going to put this information in first, where will the agent begin? Will we go ahead and start at ground level with this information? If we do, how will we accomplish that? I want you to think about these things, and when we're working on Wednesday, I want you to go ahead and come up with some ideas of what needs to change so that we can make this turn into the agent putting his matrix, his two-dimensional image, up and down instead of flat. And that's the end of the video. Go ahead and keep working today on putting your images in Minecraft, guys. The end.